welcome to the April Centenary News with me, Jessica.
And me, Lewis. We bring you this month's show here from the city's walls in Londonderry. Coming up on today's show,
we look at a new piece of research conducted by the Londonderry Bands Forum.
We have a song written by a famous hymn writer who lived here in the city.
We've got an interview with former BBC political editor Mark Davenport.
We'll look at some news in brief.
And we have a Did You Know special from here on the city's walls.
We start today's programme with a new piece of research looking at the cultural and political change in the Protestant community in the Derry City and Strabane District Council area. The research, which is called Where Are We Now?, was conducted by the Londonderry Bands Forum through Peace for Funding. To tell us a little more about the research and its findings, we are joined by Brian Doherty.
Well, the research was commissioned by Derry City Strabane District Council under SCUPB. It was really to look at the whole issue around lack of engagement from the Protestant Unionist Loyalist community. So the Londonderry Bands Forum spent a number of months collating information for it. We surveyed 300 households. We carried out 21 one-to-one interviews and 10 focus groups, largely within the Protestant communities we covered. Specifically Nelson Drive, the rural communities of Micromason and the rural community around it, and then also Castle Durge, so we had a broad geographical spread. What we're hoping to do with the research is kind of use it for recommendations going forward. Hopefully information that we can use with the Londonderry Bands Forum and North West Cultural Partnership, but also information that can be useful for community organisations in the Derry Strabane Council area, particularly Nelson Drive, the rural community in Castle Durge. We also hope it, as well as that, we hope it informs policy going forward, both at local level with the council, but maybe also in terms of governmental policy at the Executive Office and Northern Ireland Office going forward. It's the most extensive piece of work ever carried out in the city, specifically looking at the unionist community. So we're hopeful that the recommendations and the really important information we gathered will be a valuable resource going forward.
I think there's one key quote that I suppose puts into context why we took on this piece of work, as Kenny outlined. And that actually came from Kenny himself. And I'll quote here, he said, "We had a sense that in certain respects, many in the council area, be they decision makers, the movers and shakers, the business community and others, have become invisible to Protestant concerns, and that many within the Protestant community were content to remain invisible."
This extensive research was launched at the end of March on the Bands Forum's Facebook and YouTube channels. As part of the launch, Brian Doherty, who led the research, introduced some of the findings and took part in a debate alongside Professor Pete Shirlow from the University of Liverpool, the DUP's Gary Middleton, Sinn Féin's Martina Anderson, and the event was presented by Paul McFadden. You can watch the launch again on the Londonderry Bands Forum's social media platforms.
As you may know, Northern Ireland has many talented musicians and songwriters. Not far from us here in the city was home to one of the world's most prolific hymn writers, Cecil Francis Alexander. Born in Dublin, she showed she had a poetic gift from a young age. She later married Minister William Alexander in Strabane, and they lived here in Londonderry, in what today is the Masonic Hall in Bishop Street. Her husband was the Bishop of Derry and Raphoe, and later became Archbishop of Armagh. Cecil Francis Alexander wrote over 400 hymns and poems. Many of these are well known around the world. Some of her most famous hymns include There's a Green Hill Far Away and the Christmas Carol Once in Royal David City. Buried here in the city, her grave can still be found in the city cemetery. Here singing one of her famous hymns, All Things Bright and Beautiful, is Amy Smith, accompanied by Stuart Smith.
All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great.
Next, you might have seen BBC Spotlight programme based on the Centenary of Northern Ireland. If you did, you might have recognised some familiar faces and some footage from our January Centenary launch event. A few weeks ago, Georgina, our dance tutor, was interviewed by former BBC political editor Mark Davenport to discuss the Northern Ireland Centenary. He spoke to Georgina about why it's important for the partnership to celebrate the centenary of Northern Ireland. After the interview, we took the chance to ask Mark a few questions of our own about his long broadcasting career in Northern Ireland.
You joined BBC NI in 1986 and became political editor in 2001. During this time as a journalist in Northern Ireland, what was the biggest story you have reported on?
Well, Jessica, I've reported on lots of big stories, but I suppose the biggest was the Good Friday Agreement, because that was when everything changed in Northern Ireland. I was working then for the BBC, reporting mostly for the radio across the water, but I spent months and months in that car park outside Castle Buildings at Stormont waiting to see if there would be a deal, and it was a deal that really changed everything for everyone here, so that was quite exciting.
What advice would you give to someone who is considering a career in journalism, and would you recommend this as a career?
I think it's a really good and interesting career. It's the sort of job where you never know from one day to the next quite what you're going to be doing. Now, there's always a lot more people who want to get jobs in something like journalism than there are jobs going. So you've got to take a leaf out of the book of Robert the Bruce, who spotted a spider when he was in hiding, and he saw the spider trying to make the web, and then the web broke and tried again. You've got to be that determined with journalism and just keep at it. And if you are that determined and you've got a bit of a skill and a talent for it, you will find a way.
Who is the most famous person you have interviewed?
Who is the most famous person I've interviewed? It's probably a toss-up between Bill Clinton and Nelson Mandela. Bill Clinton I got to interview a couple of times here in Northern Ireland and back in America, and he was the president of the United States at the time, so that was quite exciting. Nelson Mandela, I wasn't actually expecting to interview him at all. I happened to be in South Africa and I was following Northern Ireland politicians out there, and then there was a big kind of kerfuffle in the reception at the hotel where I was staying, and I asked the staff what was going on, and they said, oh, the president of South Africa is coming to officially open this hotel. So I managed to bagsy a very quick interview with Nelson Mandela, shouting questions about Northern Ireland at him, and he was very courteous and he answered all my questions, and I wasn't really expecting that to happen at all.
You've reported in Northern Ireland for many years, through the Troubles, and at many iconic moments in our history. What are the biggest changes you have seen within journalism here?
Well, I suppose the biggest change has been from reporting on the Troubles and the conflict to having a much more peaceful society. So that's been a big change. And that's meant that journalistically, we've had to change the way that we go about things. I mean, during the Troubles, sadly, you would see that a lot of journalists ended up being ambulance chasers because terrible things were happening, and we'd have to go and chase out to the scene of them and get there as quickly afterwards as possible. Now, sometimes you're having to dig around and investigate a story and kind of create a story. Obviously, there are tensions in society, but they aren't as bad as they were when I started.
Each month we bring you facts about Northern Ireland. This month we bring you a special edition here from the city's walls. Did you know?
Londonderry is the only remaining completed walled city in Ireland, and one of the finest examples of walled cities in Europe. The walls were built during the period 1613 to 1618 by the Honourable the Irish Society as defences for early 17th century settlers from England and Scotland.
The walls cost £10,757 to build. They played a major part during the siege of Derry, and today are a major tourist attraction of the city. They are approximately 1 mile in circumference and vary in height and width. The walls are completely intact and form a walkway around the city.
There are 7 gates in total, 4 of which were built at the same time as the walls themselves, and 3 were added later. The 4 original gates are Bishopsgate, Ferry Quay Gate,
Butchergate.
Shipquay Gate, and the 3 additional gates.
Newgate opened in 1787. Castlegate added in 1803.
And Magazine Gate, added in 1865.
The walls are lined with 22 cannons from the 16th, 17th and 18th centuries. The city boasts the largest collection of cannons whose precise origins are known, with many of them being used during the siege of Derry. In 2005, 24 of the cannons were restored to their former glory, including the famous Roaring Meg, located
Known locally as the Wee Church on the Walls, St Augustine's Church was built in 1873 and was consecrated by Bishop William Alexander, husband of the famous hymn writer Cecil Francis Alexander. The scenic church is accessed on the walls and is steeped in history. Now we return to a story we brought you in our February show, when we interviewed Northern Ireland women's football manager Kenny Shields.
Losing a football match is not anything to be afraid of, and I want that to be your mentality. From the first whistle to your last whistle, you give your best. That's all we want.
Congratulations to Kenny and his team in beating Ukraine 4-1 to qualify for next year's tournament in England. This is a great achievement for a team with mostly amateur players. After the game, Kenny described it as one of the greatest sporting achievements by any team worldwide, but certainly in the UK. In our interview with Kenny, he spoke about the pathway for girls to play international football. On qualifying for the Euros, this team will be sure to inspire the next generation and show what can be achieved if you dare to dream. Northern Ireland captain Marissa Callahan had a message for girls after the game. All the girls watching this, dream of wearing the green shirt because it'll be the most amazing time you'll ever have.
If you have fear of failure, we might as well not cross the white line. Never be afraid of failure.
This month saw the world's most famous horse race take place at Aintree Racecourse. The 2021 Grand National returned after being postponed last year due to the coronavirus pandemic. The race will go down in history as for the first time it was won by a female jockey, Rachel Blackmore from County Tipperary. The trophies presented to the winners were designed and made by Cara Murphy from Hillsborough in Northern Ireland. Cara, who is a silversmith, was commissioned to design the trophies again this year, after designing and making them last year, only for the race to be cancelled. Cara was delighted to get the chance to design them this year, but admits that there was a lot of thinking and sleepless nights working on the design and wanting them to be representative of the times. The trophy represents moving forward but also has a coronavirus symbol on the base. Cara's work appears in museums as well as national and international collections. Well done to Cara on the wonderful looking trophies, and rumour has it she also backed the winning horse.
We hope you enjoyed our show from the historic walls here in Londonderry. Remember, you can keep up to date with our latest news or contact us through our social media platforms.
Finally, for this month's news, we are all saddened this month to hear of the death of Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, at the age of 99.
During his time as consort to the Queen, he made 19 visits to Northern Ireland, the first of which was in 1946 to launch HMS Eagle, which was built at the Harland and Wolff shipyard.
He visited Londonderry in 2009 when they officially opened Lisneal College. His last official visit here was in May 2017 when he met 115 young people for the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. The scheme, which many young people from Northern Ireland have taken part in, offers millions of young people the chance to discover that they can do anything, achieve anything and overcome anything, whatever their ability, interest, or background.
Once again, thank you for joining us. Until next time, goodbye.